I got a great question from a listener. Chris Calanti wants to know, Mr. Rand, what does put the franchise tag on Darnold mean? I'm new to all this. Thanks. That's a great reminder, right? Like sometimes you got to take a step back. You got to say, okay, we use this. We use all these terms in sports all the time. We use this parlance. Sports has its own language. It has its own, a lot of assumed knowledge. You start to write something once or twice, suddenly you revert to a shorthand. You don't explain everything in full detail every time, but sometimes something gets lost in translation. So I'm glad Chris had us hit pause here. What does it mean to put the franchise tag on Sam Darnold? The franchise tag is basically a mechanism in the NFL whereby a team can avoid making a long-term commitment to a player. They can make a short-term commitment to a player, a one-year commitment to a player. They can do it once a year with one player. Basically, what they can do with it is say, we are going to pay you a guaranteed salary for 1 year that is up in the upper echelon of what you would get paid at your position. It's determined by some sort of formula based on, I won't get into the deep details, but basically it has to do with average value of the best and highest paid players at each position, plus percentage of NFL salary cap, stuff like that. What I do know specifically is the computation, the estimated computation for how much a quarterback will make on a franchise tag in 2025 is about $39.5 million. So if the Vikings want to place the franchise tag on Sam Darnold, that means they will designate him as their franchise player sometime during the window that opens up in mid-February and closes in early March. And they will say, you are our franchise player. We are guaranteeing you a salary of $39.5 million for 2025. It's a 1-year contract. The player has no say in it. The tag goes on, and the player has to live with it, has to deal with it. You might recall Kirk Cousins in Washington before he came to the Vikings had that tag applied to him twice. Washington didn't want to commit to Kirk Cousins full time, long term, but they were willing to pay him kind of year by year. So that's how we get to the notion of a franchise tag. Now, where it gets complicated is this. Just because you put a franchise tag on a player and say, we are going to pay you this much for next season, you can still negotiate with that player on a long-term contract after that tag has been applied. You can rip it up and say, you know what? This just bought us time to negotiate. Now we want to sign you to a long-term contract that, of course, both sides have to agree to. They could also put the franchise tag on Sam Darnold and then turn around and trade him to another team that probably wants to sign him to a long-term contract. This, to me, seems like the most likely path the Vikings will take. They recognize they have an asset in Sam Darnold, who played very well for most of the season, had a really rough regular season finale against Detroit, had a rough playoff game against the Rams where he got sacked 9 times, probably depleted his free agency stock a little bit, depleted how the Vikings probably look at him, but overall had a tremendous year here. Will be a coveted player if he reaches free agency, probably the top quarterback in the free agency market. So what the Vikings could do is say, you know what? We know he's an asset, but we don't necessarily want to keep him. We have J.J. McCarthy waiting in the wings. We don't want to spend $40 million on a quarterback next season. We want cheap quarterback play from our second-year quarterback. We're going to sign a low-cost veteran backup like Daniel Jones, perhaps, who was on the roster at the end of the season after being cut by the Giants, things like that. And then they might say, but we know that teams will want Sam Darnold. We are going to put the franchise tag on him and then try to extract some sort of value, a player, a draft pick, something like that from a team that really wants Sam Darnold. Now, there's a risk. If you put the franchise tag on him and then it turns out nobody is willing to trade for him, then you're stuck with him. Then you have him on your roster in 2025, no matter what your original intent was. So I think they would have to have a pretty good idea of his market and know that they were going to be able to trade him if that would be the case. But I think he would certainly have a market. I think he would certainly be in position where the Vikings could recoup some more draft capital by putting the franchise tag on him, saying, we guarantee you this much for 2025, and then trading him to another team that would then say, you know what, we want you. We didn't just trade for you for 1 year. We are going to, rip up this whole franchise tag notion and negotiate a longer-term, multi-year deal with you because we have given up something in the process. That seems most likely to me. Back to the basic question of what is putting the franchise tag on him, and basically it means designating him as a franchise player during a specified window of time during the NFL offseason. That's after the Super Bowl, but before free agency starts in before free agency starts in mid-March. It's basically like a period from I think like February 18th to March 4th or so this year, March 5th, March 4th, somewhere in there, where they have the window where they can say this is what we want to designate Sam Darnold as, and Sam Darnold has no say in that. He would have to basically be franchised. He would be under that tag until the Vikings did a long-term contract with him, until they played it out for a year with him, or until they traded him to a team that then wanted him probably for more than one season. So long story short, it's a way of guaranteeing you have a player for 1 year and 1 year only at a specified contract level. And again, the quarterback going rate looks like it's going to be $39.5 million in 2025. If you're going to put the franchise tag on a quarterback for 2025, that is what they're going to cost, regardless of who it is. They have to be an unrestricted free agent going into it. If you're going to put the tag on him, that is what he is going to cost. So great question, Chris. Hope that explains it. Yeah, we can do more of these. Send me some more questions if you guys got interesting questions, if you got hot takes, things like that. Send them my way, and I will try to answer them.